The mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. A chilling cold case. Literally. In the deep silence of a Russian winter, a place where the world seems to hold its breath, 9 friends embarked on an expedition into the Ural Mountains. They were experienced ski hikers, bright students, engineers, and athletes, full of youthful ambition and the simple joy of adventure. They packed their supplies, their warmest clothes, and their cameras, eager to conquer the snowy peaks. Their journey would end on the slope of a place the indigenous Mansi people had long named Kolet Cycle, which translates to Dead Mountain. They would vanish, leaving behind a scene of such profound and baffling mystery that it has whispered through the decades, haunting investigators, historians, and dreamers for over 60 years. A puzzle where the clues only lead to deeper, more unsettling questions. Tonight, we will gently unravel the layers of evidence, sift through the leading theories, and explore the enduring enigma of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. If you find yourself captivated by history's greatest unsolved puzzles, if you enjoy slowly piecing together a mystery as you drift towards sleep, then you have found a home here. Consider subscribing to the Gentle Scholar's Bedtime Stories and join our quiet community of thoughtful listeners. Your support helps us continue exploring the world's deepest mysteries. Now, let us dim the lights and journey back together to January of 1959. Chapter 1. The expedition begins. The group was led by a 23-year-old radio engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He was an experienced outdoorsman, and those who knew him described a confident, responsible leader. With him were 8 others, his close friends, and fellow students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. Among them was Zinaida Kolmogorova, who wrote passionate letters to her parents from the trail. There was Georgiy Krivonischenko, a former military man, and Lyudmila Dubinina, a spirited and determined young woman who was known for her sharp wit. Together, they were more than just a hiking party. They were a band of friends, bound by a shared love for the stark beauty of the winter wilderness. Their goal was to reach Mount Otorten, a challenging journey graded as Category 3, the most difficult level of Soviet hiking certification. It was a test of their skill and endurance, a chance to prove themselves against the elements. In their journals, which we are so fortunate to still have, their voices come alive. The pages are not filled with foreboding, but with the mundane and cheerful details of expedition life. Notes about the weather, jokes shared over a campfire, the weight of their supplies. On January 31st, one of them wrote of the breathtaking views and the satisfying fatigue of a day's hard travel. There was a sense of anticipation, of a great adventure unfolding, just as it should. On February 1st, their progress was hampered by a building snowstorm and worsening visibility. They made a decision that would become the central mystery of this story. Rather than losing precious time by hiking back to the forest a mile away for shelter, they chose to set up camp right there, on the exposed slope of Sayakol. They carved a platform into the mountainside and pitched their large, communal tent. It was a decision born of practicality, one any tired group of hikers might make. As the last light faded and the wind picked up, they settled in for the night. They cooked a simple meal, and the last known photograph from their camera shows a scene of blurred movement and swirling snow. A moment frozen in time, ordinary in every way, yet impossibly heavy with what we know was to come. What happened in the hours that followed is the heart of the mystery. For something would cause 9 rational, experienced, and strong-willed individuals to do the one thing that guaranteed their demise in such conditions. They cut their way out of their tent from the inside, and they fled into the frozen darkness, without their boots, without their coats, without turning back. Chapter 2: The Search and the Discovery. As the days went past their expected return, a quiet concern among their friends and families grew into a palpable dread. The Institute mobilized. Volunteer search parties, comprised of fellow students and teachers, set out into the mountains. They followed the group's intended route, calling their names into the vast, silent emptiness, their voices swallowed by the wind. For weeks, they found nothing. The Arctic winter had sealed the landscape, hiding any trace of the 9 friends. It wasn't until February 26th, nearly a month after the group had last been seen, that a student searcher named Mikhail Sherevin finally found a grim clue. High on the slope of Sayakol, Sherevin came upon the camp. The tent was still standing, but it was badly damaged, covered in a thick layer of snow. And it was silent, eerily silent. As he investigated, the scene became more and more perplexing. The tent had been cut open from the inside. The hikers' most crucial possessions, their warm winter coats, their boots, their passports, and even their food had all been left behind. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air in the middle of preparing for bed. A single, haunting path led away from the torn tent flap and down the slope toward the dark line of the forest, almost a mile away. Some prints found were from bare feet. Others were from socks or a single boot. They spoke not of an orderly evacuation, but of a sudden, frantic, and desperate flight. The searchers, their hearts heavy with dread, followed the trail. It led them to the edge of the forest, to the gnarled branches of an old Siberian pine. And there, beneath its boughs, they made the first tragic discovery: the bodies of two men. They were dressed only in their undergarments. They had built a small fire. Clutching the branches above them were their frozen, lifeless hands. The mystery had just deepened beyond all imagining. Why were they here, so far from the tent and its supplies? Why were they so undressed? And where were the others? The full truth would take months to uncover. As the spring thaw slowly, reluctantly, gave up the mountain's secrets. Chapter 3: The Unfolding Tragedy and the Enduring Enigma. As the harsh grip of winter began to loosen, the searchers returned to the ravine. The melting snow revealed the rest of the story, piece by tragic piece. Not far from the first two, they found the body of Igor Dyatlov himself, as if he had been trying to lead his friends back to the tent. Then, Zinaida Kolmogorova was found, her hand outstretched, crawling toward the camp she would never reach. But the mystery was far from over. It was only in May, with the deep snows finally gone, that they found the last 4 hikers, buried under a thick layer of snow in a small creek bed at the bottom of the ravine. And it was here that the puzzle became infinitely more complex. These 4 were better dressed than the others, having apparently taken clothes from those who had perished first. But their injuries were deeply perplexing. Lyudmila Dubinina and Alexander Zolotaryov had suffered massive internal trauma. Crushed ribs, shattered chests. Yet there was not a single external bruise on their bodies. It was as if they had been subjected to an immense, crushing force, but one that left their skin unmarked. To add another layer of mystery, Ludmilla was missing her tongue, her eyes, and the eyes of one of the others were missing as well, a detail often attributed to the natural scavenging of small animals and exposure, but one that has fueled speculation for decades. The scene was a profound contradiction. Injuries suggestive of a violent, overwhelming force, yet set in a location of utter stillness, with no signs of a struggle, no evidence of another soul for miles around. Chapter 4. The Theories, a Tapestry of Possibilities. The official investigation was closed, the case filed away, its conclusion vague. But the questions have lived on. And over the years, a tapestry of theories has been woven, each attempting to explain the inexplicable. The most common is the avalanche. Perhaps a small slab of snow struck the tent, causing the chest injuries and prompting a panicked escape. But searchers found no evidence of an avalanche. The tent was still standing on its platform. The victim's own footprints leading away were still preserved in the snow, undisturbed by any slide. Then there is infrasound, the idea that a specific wind pattern over the mountain peak generated a low-frequency sound, inaudible to the human ear, but one that can induce feelings of intense dread, panic, and even physical illness. Could this acoustic terror have driven them from the safety of their tent into the certain death of the cold? Others point to the paradoxical undressing, often seen in severe hypothermia, where victims, confused and feeling a sudden burning heat, remove their clothes. This could explain their state of undress, but it does not explain the traumatic injuries or why they cut their way out. There are theories involving secret military tests, from the nearby installations, of a misplaced missile or a sonic weapon they were not meant to witness. Some speak of yetis or otherworldly encounters. The absence of tongues, the nature of the injuries, each detail has been examined endlessly. What exactly could make a group of young, strong, and experienced hikers leave their comfort zone to meet a certain demise? Could it have been a bet? If it was, how did all of them buy into it? Someone out there must have an idea what could have happened. But so far, no one has bothered to come forward or explain a possible compelling theory of what could have happened to a team of 9 hikers. And as we ponder these possibilities, I would be so interested to know which theory you find most compelling. Please, feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective adds to our collective contemplation of this mystery. Chapter 5. The Conclusion. The Mountain's Secret. In the end, after all the theories have been examined, the mountain keeps its secret. The official files remain open. The 9 hikers are remembered not just for their tragic end, but for their vitality, their courage, and the profound, unanswerable question they left behind. Perhaps the truth is a combination of factors: a rare and specific avalanche, followed by disorientation and the cruel, confusing effects of hypothermia. Perhaps it is something beyond our current understanding. The Dyatlov Pass Incident endures because it is more than a cold case. It is a haunting reminder that in our modern age, there are still places where the known rules seem to pause, and mystery takes hold. It is a story to be pondered not with fear, but with a quiet awe for the unknown. Thank you for letting me guide you through this haunting story tonight. If this journey into the unknown brought you intrigue and respect for the unknown, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe and join me for the next mystery. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. What forgotten enigma or historical puzzle you've heard recently. Until then, from the Library of the Gentle Scholar's Bedtime Stories, may your mind be at ease, and your sleep be deep. Good night.